Okay, let's get started. Welcome to the Tuesday, September 2nd, 2025 regular council meeting. We are gathering and governing as we do on the traditional and unceded territory of what is now known as the Comox First Nation. We are grateful for their grace and collaboration as we do this good work on their lands. Could I have a motion to approve the agenda, please?
Move the agenda. Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Sorry, I'll also just mention that both Councillor Barecki and Councillor Sullivan are unable to make the meeting today. So we are quorum at 3 councillors. Minutes, the adoption of Committee of the Whole July 28th and regular council July 28th.
Minutes. Second.
It's going to be a lot of work on the first and second day. All in favor? Thank you. And delegations, Experience Comox Valley draft, Comox Valley Tourism Strategy Framework. Come on up. Team Comox Valley.
I feel like I can do karaoke.
Yeah. You could sing it if you want.
I'll keep that in my mind. Good afternoon, everyone, through Mayor to councillors. My name is Lisa Kilpatrick. I'm the CDRD Manager of Community Development and Resilience, and I also oversee our tourism service, which is also operating as Experience Comox Valley. So the Comox Valley Tourism Service was established in 2021, and that's when Cumberland came on board. And it was established to provide destination marketing and tourism services. When the service was created, we got our legs under us, and the board directed us to develop a regional tourism strategy. And so that's what we're here today to present. 4VI, now Forever Strategies, has been administering Experience Comox Valley since 2021. And the team has also been hard at work over the last 18 months on developing the draft tourism strategic framework. I'll turn it over to Callum Matthews, the president of Forever Strategies, and Tanya Massa, Experience Comox Valley's tourism development specialist.
Thanks, Lisa.
I probably don't even need the microphone.
You've picking you up, yeah.
Yeah, you've seen me present before. So thanks, Lisa. And I also just want to acknowledge that we're grateful to be here today on the traditional and unceded territory of Comox First Nation. So as Lisa mentioned, we have been hard at work building out a tourism strategic framework for the 10-year tourism strategy plan, which will be a roadmap for sustainable tourism development, supporting economic growth with environmental and social well-being for the region over the next decade. The reference area is the same as the regional tourism service, so includes our 3 municipalities as well as the electoral areas A, B, and C, but not including Denman and Hornby Island. Over the past 18 months, we've done a lot of engagement throughout this work, so including establishing a balanced tourism strategy steering committee, which has 12 members on it, some members from traditional tourism organizations and businesses such as accommodation, food and beverage, transportation, but also some representing maybe non-traditional areas that wouldn't normally be in tourism, such as education, community, environmental organizations, business development organizations. We launched a virtual community engagement page through the engagecomoxvalley.com website, where the public can interact with the planning process. It's also where we have been announcing how to engage with us. We've got a feedback survey on there right now. We did some public engagement sessions, including a virtual session as well as in-person workshops, which were really well attended, and it was great to see just diversity of people come out to both of those. We hosted a local government staff session and an elected officials forum, as well as did some targeted engagements, so including focus group conversations as well as one-on-one interviews. And there's been engagement through the Comox Economic Development Corporation and the CAOs from Courtenay, Comox, Cumberland, and Comox First Nation. The Tourism Advisory Committee, which was established at the start of this service, has also been engaged throughout the process and has reviewed the draft and been informed along the way too. So now I'm going to turn over to Callum, who's going to be going over the framework, which will be used to inform our implementation plans.
Perfect, thank you, Tanya. So starting off with the vision, and I think a bit of context for the plan as a whole is that our team was really focused on trying to strike a balance where the plan and its themes and focus areas will resonate with all of the communities in the Comox Valley and doesn't get into like tons of specifics, because in a reference area as big as this strategy, it could be 1 million pages long. So we're really trying to focus at this stage on kind of the higher level priorities and themes, and I hope the vision speaks to that. The Comox Valley is a sustainable island destination that enriches the lives of residents now and for future generations. Environmental stewardship, culture, regional collaboration, and reconciliation with Indigenous peoples creates a resilient and thriving tourism network that is home to exceptional year-round experiences that tell the stories of the Comox Valley. And that goal, as we workshopped it many times with different groups, including a steering committee, we feel that it strikes a balance of being inspirational and aspirational, something that we're working towards through the duration of the plan. We also spend a huge amount of time developing guiding principles to kind of serve as the foundation or bedrock of the plan. The guiding principles here: collaboration, reconciliation, harmony, resilience, openness. And I think for me, overall, I think there's a theme here of really trying to bring the community into tourism and trying to maximize tourism benefits, and do that in a way that is, acting with integrity and transparency and openness. And I think that speaks to the fact that tourism really does involve and impact everybody, the positives and the challenges associated with tourism. And when we were going through the actual planning process and looking at specific actions, the principles definitely serve as an opportunity to kind of reassess a potential issue and decide whether it fits in the plan or not. And it helps to provide, I think, an additional level of focus and thought as we're doing that work. Out of this, we developed a set of strategic themes. They're in no particular order. Each one of these themes has goals, objectives, and actions built within it. Just for the sake of kind of this presentation here, we haven't included all of the actions with time in mind, but I'll flag a couple along the way that I think might be particularly relevant. So the first theme is working together. Since we got involved with Experience Comox Valley in 2020 or 2021, I think the part for us where we've seen a huge amount of traction and positivity is working together in a more collaborative way. And it was only natural that we kind of continue to do that and try to find new ways of strengthening that. The first goal area is around collaborative partnerships across sectors and with Indigenous partners. And that's really a focus of kind of having a more regenerative tourism industry that reflects community values and increases benefit to community members. And another key component through this planning process was that huge amount of engagement that Tanya spoke to, and ensuring that we continue to frequently engage with community as positive opportunities come around, as well as pain points and pressures that community members are feeling. It's a 10-year plan, but it's been built in such a way that it's flexible and we can be nimble to adapt to whatever changes we might face. And in terms of one action here, in the framework, we have built in some specifics around how we can work together, for example, across staff from different local governments. Tourism is challenging to manage because there's so many players involved, and ensuring that there's regular communication and that we're trying to more collaboratively address issues together and across jurisdictions is going to be key to our success. The next theme area is strengthening stewardship of place. The two goals around this are resident and visitors being educated and engaged, trying to have a more active participation in the tourism industry, shaping the way that tourism is developed and the benefits that it brings to residents, and really wanting them to kind of see themselves in the tourism landscape. Next, implement responsible and regenerative actions. Experience Comox Valley currently is really focused on two pieces of the tourism puzzle, so to speak. Visitor services and engaging with visitors and sharing information, and the second side, primary side, is promotion and marketing. There's a lot of other levers within the tourism industry supporting operators, the experience development side, destination development, and also this idea of destination stewardship and kind of community well-being. So a new kind of expanded focus area for Experience Comox Valley really identified here in moving more towards this kind of regenerative tourism industry. And one of the actions that is identified in the plan that we heard from operators in particular was around more support and training for operators around how they can be more sustainable and regenerative in their practices. Lots of operators that are experts in the tour or offering that they provide to visitors and residents, but extra support is needed related to how they can further expand community benefits and reduce impact. And that's an area that Experience Comox Valley could invest funds in training, and we've seen it be successful in a lot of other communities on the island. Next, we have empower a resilient and inclusive tourism economy. The goals flowing from this: continue to support a strong year-round tourism economy. We, like any destination, have kind of ups and downs in terms of visitation, and we're able to retain a lot more jobs for the community if we're able to have that be more balanced over the course of the year. And I think that the Comox Valley is kind of ideally positioned when you look in British Columbia to have a true four-season set of experiences. Next, we have positioning tourism businesses and organizations as vital contributors to the regional economy. And I think a big part of that was tourism in part advocating for itself and the value and benefits that it can bring, and being able to demonstrate that in a little bit of a clearer, more tangible way, while also working with operators to further increase those benefits. And next, we have support inclusive and accessible communities. And you can see the objectives kind of listed there. One of the other major discussion points was around kind of accessibility and inclusion in the Comox Valley. And we know that we have, from a visitor perspective as well as resident, in many communities, an aging demographic. And I think a big opportunity to have more accessible and inclusive spaces, but I think also a responsibility as communities and tourism operators to do that, and looking to support tourism operators as they modify spaces to be more accessible for their guests. Support connected communities and tourism infrastructure. Support a sustainable and seamless transportation network that connects communities to each other and the world. Invest in tourism infrastructure that reflects community priorities and contributes to decarbonization, and provides immersive experiences for residents and visitors. And I think for me, a key point around this is that infrastructure for community is often infrastructure that benefits visitors as well. And I think looking at infrastructure investments in the tourism context in terms of how will this benefit our local population, how will this make life in Cumberland or elsewhere in the Comox Valley better, and the kind of tourism spin-off benefits are great to have from that, but really focusing investment in kind of community needs that also connect to tourism. And a really big theme throughout our discussion with community was the need for more low carbon transportation options, more active transportation options, and when it comes to public transport, further investments in improving service, improving accessibility options for folks. So you'll see that built out within the actions of the framework. And last but not least, again, no particular order on these ones, enhance year-round experiences for everyone. Continue to support the growth of vibrant and sustainable economies that are communities that are a great place to live and visit. Provide exceptional and unique year-round experiences for residents and visitors alike. And one of the big components in terms of actions around this one is around the visitor servicing model. We obviously are fortunate to have our current space, and I think that over the past couple of years we've looked at different options for complementing that with more mobile visitor servicing, where we can kind of pop up with a kiosk and be at the farmers market or other locations. And when we look at the budget for Experience Comox Valley, visitor services is a really significant portion of the budget. And I think it's fair to say that provincially and around the world, visitor servicing is changing and we need to be more adaptable. So I think we've got a nice head start on this one with the mobile kiosks, investments in the website for more digital visitor servicing. But we know that there's more that we can do, and we've got a lot of past data on the fixed property as well as the mobile locations, and we can kind of plan for the future and, you know, make some decisions that are based on the data that we've been collecting there. And then lastly, some next steps. A couple of these have already been actioned. We are presenting to all of the councils. We have some ongoing engagement going on with Engage Comox Valley online. We've also been hosting a series of community open houses, including one this afternoon. And we'll be closing the public feedback period on September 8th, reviewing all of the feedback that we've received and essentially making kind of a final set of changes to the strategy. We will be looking for final endorsement from the project steering committee that's been working on this for 18 or 19 months now. I know they're all excited to get that completed. And then we will present to the regional district board this fall for final approval. I think one important thing to note is that this tourism strategy will be used once it's been approved to help inform the upcoming municipal and regional district tax process. So right now, the MRDT, as it's known for short, is just collected within the city of Courtenay. There's an opportunity to expand where that tax is collected. Most communities on Vancouver Island are collecting the MRDT and funding affordable housing as well as tourism initiatives with that money. And you can choose between collecting 2% or 3%. Currently in the city of Courtenay, it's just 2%. So there is a really significant opportunity to generate incremental revenue from the MRDT. And ultimately, that's the way that we will be able to, revenues from MRDT will be able to help bring this plan to life and enable Experience Comox Valley to provide a more rounded set of tourism supports for the community. And the MRDT process also integrates really nicely into this planning process. So we have, as you've seen, a fairly high-level 10-year plan. MRDT has to be renewed every 5 years. So we're starting that process now. We'll have a 5-year business plan as well as a 1-year tactical plan. So we'll be working through further public engagement to determine exactly what actions and budget commitments will be made to help advance this strategy. And then about 4.5 years from now, we'll do that process again to see how we'll kind of finish off the tail end of this 10-year plan. So it's really nice that that allows us to have this more overarching long-term strategy in place to guide direction based on a huge amount of engagement and public feedback. But we can also kind of be nimble year over year with the tactical plans and have engagement taking place as well as formal approvals to make sure that we're responding to whatever the more short-term needs might be, while also paying attention to the longer-term goals we've set out here. So that's it for the presentation. Happy to take any questions there might be. Please join me for this, Tanya.
Thanks, Callum and Tanya. Questions, anybody?
All right, I've got a few. Thank you very much, Callum, and everyone who did all the work on this. I attended some of the sessions as well. Very well done. The engagement's been great. You talked about supporting transportation, active transportation. One of the things that we're particularly keen to see is a safe cycle route between Cumberland and Courtenay. Is that explicitly called out in one of the actions as something this plan supports?
So I don't believe that particular safe cycle route is identified in the plan. It's a little bit higher level and more broad than that around the need for kind of more active transportation routes across the, I think it predominantly speaks to the incorporated communities within the Comox Valley and active transportation options there. So I think generally it would be included, but it's not specifically identified.
Right.
But good to know that that's a key priority here.
Absolutely.
Lisa,
Yeah,
Lisa wants to
if I could just
chime in on that.
add to that too. I think one of the benefits of this being a regional plan is that we can use the plan to leverage the strategic areas in our other local government priority areas, right? So it might not be something that's done through here, but the voices that have been heard through this plan will help support the activities across our other strategic areas.
You mentioned the success of the pop-up visitor services, and noted that myself. I've talked with your staff in Village Square. Thank you. What do you have a view at the moment on the future of the fixed property, large centre model, both across the province more generally and here in Val?
You own the building.
Yeah, so it's definitely something that as staff we're contemplating, and we're working with the board on what the future of the center looks like. We do have the numbers, the stats that we have on the fixed property, and whatever decisions made by the board that will come into play for sure. That property was particularly not part of the engagement process because how we manage services is not dependent on that specific property, but it is something the board is contemplating.
And it's definitely a great resource for the community, not only as information, but we've got the boardroom to rent out, and we've been working with iHoss Gallery to put up a new Indigenous art display up there as well, which I'm really excited about, because that'll really liven up some of the empty wall space that we have towards the back. And it is something that we do get complimented on a regular basis from visitors that come through the area. Actually, even one of the people that visited us downstairs for our open house that we just had, he moved here because after visiting the visitor center and getting the brochures and our print guide, he was either going to move here or Penticton, and we were better apparently.
I think, like, perhaps
that was his deciding factor.
I think perhaps, like, more broadly on a provincial level, the general trend is there's less and less provincial funding to operate visitor centers. Most of the funding that's available now is for new incremental different ideas and implementations for visitor servicing. But I think that it's fair to say, like my team and I operate the visitor center here as well as in Campbell River and Pacific Rim at the junction between Tofino and Ucluelet. And I think that visitors do kind of have an expectation of a place they can drop in, there's facilities there, they can have that more personal touch, and they know where it is and what the hours are. And that's the side with the mobile visitor centers that are a little bit trickier. If someone's passing through town, they may not know exactly where that location is going to be. Those are really great at intercepting folks that might not otherwise have been seeking out that information, and it could encourage them to spend more. So I think we really do have the best of both worlds right now in the Comox Valley, but our team's really focused on being able to adapt regardless of what the kind of future for that specific space is.
And finally, MRDT, talking about expansion of that. It would be interesting seeing that unified across the region, so that expectations, visitor and provider expectations are identical wherever you are in the region. Does that also apply to vacation rental properties? Because I certainly support using MRDT to support affordable housing options, and another positive thing.
Yeah, that's correct. Since 2018, it's included short-term rental properties that are using, it's automatically collected by any of the big short-term rental platforms. It's a little trickier if there might be, some long-time operated vacation homes that have reoccurring families every year, but it's collected automatically in the back end of the platform, so the individual owner of the property doesn't have to deal with the math and remittance of it all.
Okay, well, thank you.
And I'll just add that the MRDT funds from short-term rentals are the only funds, the only MRDT that is applicable to affordable housing. Like you can't tax a hotel and then use that for affordable housing, just short-term rentals.
Yeah, that's generally correct. There would be, if MRDT from a fixed roof hotel were to be used for affordable housing, there's an extra process for that, and it actually requires signatures from a majority of the the fixed roof properties. So it is quite challenging but the OAP short-term the money from the short-term rental properties can just be automatically diverted to affordable housing initiatives.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I'd expect MRPT to fund a range of initiatives, both directly tourism connected and community employment initiatives, I think.
Yeah, thank you for the presentation. Councillor Ward asked most of the questions I had as well. About, yes, we definitely do want an active transportation network. I'm wondering if there's also funding through this to help with other tourism related. We've got parking issues here in town because we host all of the mountain bike tourism that comes to the valley. They stay, because we don't have hotels, they stay in Courtenay, but they recreate here, which puts quite a bit of pressure on us for parking and those kinds of issues. So is there, I don't know, is there funding available to help us with new parking lots, that type of, like, we'd love to open a new parking lot at one of the other trailheads to take some of the pressure off our main parking lot here in town. Is there funding or ways we can get help with that sort of?
So we've heard a lot about that particular challenge through the planning process, so no surprise that it came up. Thanks for asking the question. When it comes to MRDT, there are challenges around eligible and ineligible expenses. So long story short, when it comes to anything that is being like brick and mortar constructed, it's generally not a permitted MRDT expense. So that is one of the challenges I know a lot of communities have when it comes to MRDT. But it's definitely a part of the strategy and looking to try to find alternative funding sources to help with that issue is certainly top of mind here. But unfortunately, MRDT could not go to that, building a parking lot or washroom facilities under normal circumstances. There's a couple very rare exceptions, like Tofino was able to build a wastewater treatment plant with some MRDT revenue, but that was a very complicated, drawn-out, challenging process. And I'm not aware of any other infrastructure-related projects that were approved for MRDT since that particular example.
And I think the strategy also builds in actions where we're checking in with communities on an annual basis to determine what your priorities are and what the pinch points are, and then coming together collaboratively to see how we may come up with solutions. MRDT is certainly a means to an end, but not for everything. But now we have a strategy, we can work regionally to address it through other funding and other mechanisms.
Well, and I think in terms too with like parking challenges is with our visitor information servicing and our marketing initiatives and Know Before You Go, it's also just informing the public. And we really, like mountain biking, for example, we don't promote it in the summertime because we know that summer already the trails are at capacity. So it's something that we actively will only promote in the spring or the fall to sort of increase that awareness that you don't have to come here in July for great mountain biking. It's available almost year round, most years, depending on obviously snowfall and where that tree line is. So that's another thing to help hopefully alleviate some of that pressure is by that seasonal dispersion of the people that are coming up here to recreate on those trails to help make that difference there as well.
Yeah, certainly don't want to underplay the need for that investment, however.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I'll just wrap up, I guess, with some gratitude for your hard work, and the level of engagement that went into this plan was really remarkable, and really great feedback for us, or feedback for you, and your intention around regenerative tourism is also much appreciated. I think I remember the session at the CVRD board where everyone basically said do we need more tourism? And I think you've made that balance, and your focus on managing where and when and how is really helpful for our residents and our businesses that benefit from tourism. So thank you for your work.
Thank you.
If you could just get the Chinables off that Google map, that'd be super. Thank you all for being here. And there's a recommendation to receive that donation.
I just move receipt.
You can.
Second.
And everyone's in favor of that, yeah. And next up is Comox Valley Sports Track and Field Service Conversion Bylaw. Thanks, everyone. You wanna talk about it? You've seen it enough, maybe?
Yeah, I think it's pretty straightforward unless there's been a change of heart. I think the
Last
recommendations
chance.
in front of you there.
I'll move that council consent to the adoption of the Comox Valley Regional District bylaw number 883, being the Comox Valley Sports Track and Field Service Conversion bylaw 2353, amendment number 2, under section 349 of the local government.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. And all in favor? We're gonna remember those steps, because there's only 3 of us. Okay, and next up is official village fungus, proposal. Does anybody else want to introduce this, or should I do that?
Yeah.
So we received correspondence from, the legendary Don Hopeman, our local, fungal expert, regarding a request to, declare, I'm just looking for the name of it, this conch, this Fomitopsis mountziae. It's a perennial polyspore fungus with several notable properties. A distinctive reddish brown to blackish brown cap with a red band, woody texture, and ability to grow on dead and living conifers. It also has medicinal benefits, including immune support, anti-inflammatory, and antimicrobial properties. Please don't use this as medicine based on my words. And so she's requesting that we make this our official fungus because apparently someone who lives here discovered it. Dr. Mounts discovered it quite a while ago, and so she's asking us to consider making an official fungus for the village.
Do we have an official anything else?
No. Go ahead, Michelle.
I just wanted to add that council may want to consult or get feedback from Comox First Nation on it before you make a decision.
Yeah.
Yes, I mean, I'd like to understand if it has traditional medicinal uses as well, or is that traditional basic culture?
Yeah.
But I'd also like to know what, I guess since we don't have an official anything else, you have no idea what level of staff effort is
Yeah.
involved in such a piece of work.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's where I'm coming down on this too, is,
Yeah.
yeah, and I guess the other piece for me is, I would like to see, more than just one person.
Right.
Asking for, you know, is this something that the public as a whole wants, or are we gonna have like one by one residents come up and ask for official things one at a time? And again, taking up a number of staff time.
Yeah.
Not that I'm against this fungus, or anything, but.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
feel like part of my job here is to represent all the community.
Yeah.
And given that we have a very popular fungus festival, which is, I don't like the word fair, it's not, but it's a special thing in the province. I'd be interested if there was a way of staff exploring this in a minimal workload to bring back at least some basic feasibility. Is there any consequences of finding it's official? Is there anything that First Nations part might have to say? But I do not want to disrupt other workload at this point.
Mhm. Yeah, so maybe we can just ask Rachel to look into what it would look like for us. And
Unless you have any guidance, I mean, as Dawn suggested, just minimal
Yeah.
information on the website, and she's provided a fair amount of information.
Yeah.
And if we did consult with Comox First Nation, we could incorporate their feedback if they want to participate. And for public engagement, we could do minimal engagement, just ask, do some social media posts and ask for some feedback. Something as simple as that.
Yeah, I don't think it has to be official. I think we could just put a conch on the website and tell the story of Dr. Mounts and recognize that, you know, could be pretty basic. So how, you wanna try and craft that?
Oh, yeah, we got to do
Motion?
that. That's a motion. It's Councillor Tyrion's turn to make a motion. No, it's, okay. Council direct staff to consider the request for an official village fungus
And bring
and
back
the
any concerns.
implications and return with any concerns or implications
Is that enough?
for a council decision.
Did you want us to return with a plan of, to consult, do a minimal public consultation and feedback from KFN? Or should we bring that back in the report?
Yeah, I'm not sure we need to consult on it, with all due respect. I think, if somebody's really against us having a fungus, yeah, I'm not sure. I think the concern around that is that someone might come and say, oh, now we want an official flower, and we want an official tree, and we want an official rock, and we want an official whatever. So let's not have a slippery slope, but this woman, Dr. Mounts, discovered this conch. It's part of our history. I think we could recognize it without creating the slippery slope situation.
That's my concern.
Yeah.
Is that, you know, I don't wanna see staff time tied up on
Yeah,
honor duties.
yeah, exactly. So,
You get one per term.
so I don't, does that mean it has to come back as a, like, report to council?
If that's what you're looking for.
Or it could just come back in the weekly reader, or,
I think it would have to come back for council to make a decision.
okay. Okay. Okay.
In the briefest possible form.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so do we have a seconder for that?
Sure.
Thank you. All in favor? Then we can kill it when it comes back if you want.
Okay.
I just think it's fun. And it's good to do nice things that recognize people who live here. So next up is, UBCM Strategic Priorities Fund application for integrated financial sustainability plan. Is Nancy gonna do it, or are you gonna do it, Michelle?
I'm just going to give you a very brief outline of the grant application that staff want to submit. And Nancy is here to answer any questions, mainly probably about the scope of what we're going to be applying for, if you approve. So most of the details of the grant and a high-level proposed project are outlined in the report. But I just want to quickly say, so there's a funding opportunity under UBCM Strategic Priorities Fund within the capacity building stream. We want to apply for it. And if approved, it would allow the village, through its planning consultant, to build an integrated financial sustainability plan. Now, I just want to make sure that you're aware that you did already approve an application with the UBCM Strategic Priorities Fund, but that was for number 2 down, but that is under the capital infrastructure stream, and so we are allowed to have an application under both streams, so I just want to make sure that you're feeling comfortable with that. But we also think that there's probably a strong chance that we will get approval on this grant. It's in the range of $300,000 to $400,000 though, so I just wanna, we're not there yet, we haven't, but yeah, we want to add, we have $50,000 in the budget for utility rate structure reviews. We want to, that would obviously be part of this, and so we will add that budget to it as well. So it's not going to be 100% of the 400,000, but it's going to be big. And the reason why we think that we have a strong chance, though, is that it's a replicable model for other communities. And so, but Nancy can answer your questions about the actual proposal as well.
Thank you, we're all very excited about this grant. Or this work, the work that will come from the grant, I guess, so tell us more, Nancy, thank you.
All right, well, I'm glad there's other sort of financial sustainability geeks out there. Yeah, I guess the idea kind of came from working with a lot of different communities around the province and sort of seeing communities dealing with sort of revenue streams in a very piecemeal fashion. And the idea of developing a scorecard to one, like evaluate, is there any low-hanging fruit or opportunities for essentially cash-strapped municipalities to like increase their revenues, because quite often there isn't enough time to do utility fee reviews and DCC reviews and looking at parcel taxes and that type of thing. And then looking at, are there any tools out there that exist that aren't being utilized by the municipality? So that kind of was the initial sort of, this would be kind of an interesting thing to do. And then, you know, talking to Michelle and also other staff about the desire to, you know, have better cost recovery, our work on the Bevan lands analysis and so on, which sort of was a tip of the iceberg type thing. The idea is like looking at a GIS tool or model that's looking at sort of revenues and costs associated with infrastructure provision, and illustrating that based on different land use scenarios so that council could use it as a decision-making tool in the future. So, you know, if you change the land use, how does the financial revenues differ than the existing land use, for example? Or if you were to potentially, and I don't want to like overpromise, but you know, it's like if you were to be looking at a higher level of like asset management or level of service, how could that potentially influence the revenue stream? Or if you're more compact versus spread out, and to be able to test those things. So what we would propose is a GIS tool that you could look at revenues versus costs. And there's one municipality that's a real leader in this, and that's the city of Kelowna, and they've spent, you know, millions of dollars on this, and council's been using that model to help make difficult land use decisions. So maybe not approving a single family sprawling development away from the core and directing growth to the core. So that's sort of one way of utilizing it. But then also really looking at the financials, like sustainability, but also like the infrastructure and asset management side of things and utility fees, which would be different. And if you change your utility fees, how does that affect different scenarios? And then the other component, which we probably could have developed a little bit more with staff in the draft report, but we're all kind of under the gun on these application deadlines, is some of the other deliverables. So would be looking at that scorecard. We know the utility fees need to be updated. We know the connection fees aren't financially sustainable. We know DCCs need to get updated, which would be like outside of this project, but potentially like providing a bit of contingency for some other low-hanging fruit that would be delivered as part of the project. And then developing two scenarios, one being for the Bevan lands, and another one being more of a residential or mixed-use area to kind of test the model and how it works in different land uses. And part of the grant application with Cumberland being a fairly small municipality is you really feel that we can dive in and look at the analysis, and the results are gonna make more sense. And we can see where the inconsistencies are versus doing this for a large municipality. So a really great pilot project is sort of what we want to put forward as part of the grant. And then something that we think will also be important to the funder and an opportunity for the village as well to celebrate success at the end is sharing the results, the methodology, and, you know, just the model, and with others through, whether that be CIP, the Canadian National Conference, or provincial conference, and I think in particular, the GFO ABC, the financial conference, to sort of share the results and like showing how like finance can play a really big part in infrastructure and land use planning as well.
And should.
That's the background.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you guys for this. This is, something I've been asking for since I got on council, since before I got on council. This is exactly what I've been, the data that I've been wanting. I didn't realize it was $400,000 worth of data when I started asking. So I'm sure glad that we're finding a way to try and grant fund this. I really like the idea that I'm hopeful that because we're a small community and this is a good test case for this type of modeling. Yeah, and then according to this, we will be able to have the underlying data once this is finished, and we'll be able to use that model and have access to the sort of the dials and levers and be able to adjust it so we can make decisions based on it.
Through our initial conversations with staff, that is being made, that point is being made, and what we would do is like hand over the model to the village, and, you know, through our general services contract, if you needed support, you know, running, maintaining the model, that could also be handled, but we would like hand it over to the village. And, you know, one thing I think that should be clear to council as well is I know there's a pretty hefty price tag. The model is, you know, maybe a quarter of that cost. You know, a lot of it is going to be the deliverables to also leave the village in a better financial, more sustainable financial position as part of the project as well.
Yeah. Awesome. No, great. I fully support this.
Similarly, thank you. I'm a spreadsheet data and models and GIS nerd as well. And without good data, it's hard to make good decisions. So yeah, I'm definitely up for that. What's the level of staff commitment to this, aside from, you know, helping with grant writing things, but assuming the project is the grant is granted, yes, is there a particular staff employment load that fits within the work plans we've got?
Yeah, I would say there's gonna be a significant amount of staff involvement, but already we have an asset management plan that we have to develop, and this is going to help us with that. So that's where the staff is gonna be involved, which we were expecting that anyway over the coming. And we're expecting like maybe announcements won't be like right away, right? So then it'll be back where we have a full complement of a team, and where we were already expecting on putting an asset management team together. That we were also already planning on doing the utility rate structure and the connections, so that was already in the work plan. And then the other you know, inventorying all our financial revenue sources and all of that kind of stuff will really be very consultant driven, but we'll have to provide that information. So that's not something I was fully expecting, but definitely it'll make things easier later. So I think short-term paying for long-term gain. And that.
Good, and I'm gratified to hear that basically the proofing and piloting of the model will be with real data and trying to bring out real outcomes as policy development and to feed into the things we need to do anyway. So yeah, in which case, yeah, let's go ahead.
Somebody want to make a motion?
I'll move that council endorse the submission of an application for the 2025 UPCM Strategic Priorities Fund for an integrated financial sustainability plan in which the Village of Cumberland will provide overall grant management for the project if the application is successful, and will support any cost overruns. The council authorized the CAO to enter into any contribution agreements or amending agreements that may be required should the village be approved for funding under the program.
Second.
All in favor? Excellent, thank you. Okay, next up is water meter options for short to mid-term. Come on up, Mike. That's all. We're all so good with the mics.
Everybody comes away now.
Evening, council. Yeah, thank you. This is kind of best way to describe it is kind of a left turn as opposed to a U-turn on the meter program. As you know, there were $1 million plus, just over $1 million allocated to capital for next year to replace the entire inventory of water meters. And in talking with Michelle and with the staff, it's real, that seems to me a very unnecessary and expensive option. The changes that has happened in the industry around water meters has been amazing in the last 20, 30 years. You're now able to get 15 to 20 year warranties for accuracy, 10-year warranties on the actual body of the meter and the register. So when we did some testing of both the ultrasonic and the positive displacement, sort of older style new meters, they were in really good shape. Very accurate still, with no sign of unnecessary wear. You know, the water quality in the village of Cumberland is not aggressive to the composite materials that are used, or the no lead brass that we're using. So it makes much more sense, I think, to just do a staged, what we're proposing is a staged replacement, 8 to 10 years, depending on funding and obviously cost of the meter themselves. And that would mean that basically, you know, even by the end of 10 years, our oldest meter that's in service is only about 25 years old. And it's not uncommon to see meters 30, 40, 50, 100 years still working, maybe not that well. We don't want to get that far. I mean, there are a lot of meters in the ground South Island that are older than I am. And they're still working. I won't finish that sentence. Anyway, I think what we're suggesting, and actually it's interesting, looking at the 2007 and then again in 2015, the reports really recommended that touch reads were the best solution for the village based on size and based on zoning, mostly residential as opposed to industrial or ICI meters. So if we can replace basically 200 plus or minus a year, we're really just using the interest of that, or $1 million to do that. And at the end of that 10-year replacement, we've got 15 years left before we have to worry about doing that again. The one thing that it does suggest, though, is that we'll stay with touch read as opposed to migrating to a radio read system. We've got about 90 meters right now, mostly commercial industrial meters, that have a radio endpoint on them, which more than doubles the cost of the unit itself. And the other concern is that the radios will fail. They just basically give out 15 to 20 years, which locks, if you want to keep doing that, it kind of locks you into that very expensive wash, rinse, repeat cycle. So as I said, when we tested, we only tested a half dozen meters. They were well within the American Water Works recommended accuracy of plus minus 1%. And even a 1 or 2% loss based on our current utility rates. So really only suggesting a loss of revenue of about $10 per household. Again, not justifying the major expense of a full-on replacement. So the recommendation is that for council that, look, we approved that we'll stay with touch read, replace about 200 a year, and at the end of that period, reallocate those funds to do just minor repairs as needed, you know, when meters actually fail, et cetera. And, you know, our meter reading costs are low relative to other communities. And the justification for a full-on radio read just doesn't seem to apply to the village of Cumberland. So I think it's a kind of middle-of-the-road suggestion that minimizes expenditure and balances that. You want accuracy, you want to keep the meters, you know, people are much more aware of how much water they use when they're metered, so that's good. And of course, these new composite meters that the village is using have excellent ability to sense leakage, even upstream of the meter, so back into our system. So, and on our current reading cycle, 4 times a year, kind of levels out the revenue stream. So that's basically in a nutshell what we're proposing, as well as the other piece of that is we'd like to go out to tender. And we've got 2 approved meter manufacturers. We've kind of committed to 1 based on the change out and the radio reads. But we still have the ability to, I think, attract some very competitive pricing if we do tender. Right now, we're buying meters off the shelf and we're paying more than we need to. And operationally, we can do this phased in replacement without having to hire new staff or without having to bring in contractors to do it. The meter pits, all the hardware's already there. So it's really just a swap out. We'll test occasionally those meters that are swapped out just to see, are we still on track as far as accuracy? And hopefully within 8 to 10 years, we can then reallocate some more funds elsewhere, and then we don't have to do that major swap out again for another dozen years. I hope that makes sense.
It does, thank you. Questions, council?
Thanks for this. I love hearing good news where we're going to be saving money. That's always welcome. Yeah, I was asking similar questions to this a while back, and I'm glad to see that we are able to do this. When these meters start to fail, which way do they generally read?
They read low, so that's an advantage to the resident.
Yeah, okay, so that's great.
Yeah. No,
So,
definitely. There's
yeah.
the occasional agricultural meter that might, in really corrosive water, go all skiddywampus, I think that's the technical term, and then
For sure.
over-register, but we don't have those meters here, it's the other way around.
So they would read in the benefit to the
To the
resident,
resident, yeah,
and we would just collect a little less
That's
water
right.
revenue.
That's
Yeah,
right.
no, that's fine. That's probably, yeah, it's better loss for, it's better. No, that's really my only questions. Just wanted to say, thank you. I know you're coming to the end of your time with us here at the village. This is I mean, you're heading home. You're heading home. And I just want to say thanks for everything you've done for us while you've been here and taking over on short notice for us, and that's been much appreciated. And this is certainly a very welcome goodbye present. Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, I'd echo that, thank you. My question's probably more for our CAO and the CFO standpoint. I think you referenced that we have a reserve of about $1 million for meter replacement, and that effectively the current interest on the reserve is enough to cover the annual operating. Is that a fair summary of what you said?
Yeah, whether it's actual interest or not, there's been money put into a reserve for, I think, almost 10 years now for this purpose. And in my discussions with Michelle, it's like, you don't need to do this. I mean, we do have to pay attention to the meters, and especially with the sort of proportion of residential to ICI meters, most of the money, the revenue that's coming in is coming from residential users. Individually, though, we're dealing with very reliable. I mean, the choice made for the meter was excellent, in fact, when they first came out, there were a lot of us that were a little doubtful about composite meters being used, and they have been more than efficient, accurate, low cost, reliable, all of that, so.
So does that effectively mean we're in a fortunate reserve position? I see you're going to bring back some remaining expenditure and planning, but does it mean that that reserve can be, effectively run down or transferred to, some of it transferred to other uses, and the maintenance of it, I see is going to be reduced by a certain amount per year?
Yeah, well, to start, the financial plan includes a $93,000 transfer to that reserve. So of that 93, you only need 60 now for this program.
Yeah.
So then 33 can be reallocated operationally. Then you have the balance in the reserve. And so what I thought I would do is come back at your 2026 financial planning process with this reallocation, kind of help you out with that dam safety review, big dollar figure, some of your other more pressure things that you're gonna, like your contribution for the water treatment plant that we've been trying to put aside and we haven't been able to yet. And see if we can't play with that 93 to get all that working, and the reserve maybe to even use some of that, so then by the end of it, what Mike's talking about is it's gonna end up to be about 25 grand a year. So can we just keep it at 25 grand a year even now with that reserve? Go all the way along, and then you have some money left over in that reserve that I could come back with you and ask you to repurpose that. And then you can, because you'll no longer need it for that, and then you can reallocate it to something else.
I look forward to exploring all this at budget time.
That's right, perfect timing.
Yeah.
I'm just.
Go for it, yep.
Okay, so I recommend that council approve a water meter replacement program that replaces the current water meter inventory in a phased incremental program over the next 10 years, with replacement of approximately 200 meters per year, and commencing in early 2026 to manage capital costs while ensuring optimal meter accuracy. And that council approve the village requesting competitive proposals for supply of its water meter equipment. And that council direct staff to reduce the current expenditure of $93,000 annually for water meter replacement to $60,000 annually, and bring forward the reallocation of the remaining expenditure of $33,000 to other water expenditures during the 2026 financial planning process.
Second.
All in favor? Excellent. Thank you, Mike, and agreed, very nice departing gift, thank you. So next up is Ride Lab Special Event. Ryan, Kevin.
Good evening. Good evening, everybody. So when council approved the 2025 Ride Lab event, Women's Mountain Biking Festival, you did so for 1 year and asked us to come back if they were to apply in a future year, which they now have for 2026, and here we are. So the 2026 event, the applicant's plan is very similar to what they did this year, other than they actually plan to end the event earlier each night. They're only requesting a 2-hour noise bylaw exemption on the Sunday evening, whereas this past year they requested one and one was granted for all 3 nights, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. One more significant difference is this year they had 135 participants, and they say that they're expecting 200 to 250 next year, so they do plan for it to be a more attended event anyways. From a staff perspective, the 2025 event seemed really well organized, went off without any major hitches. The organizer was really good to work with. There were some concerns that were expressed by representatives of UROC when we talked to them. Most notably, a little bit of trail user conflict, and then volunteer fatigue, just with other events that may be going on. Nonetheless, UROC has decided to give this event their blessing once again in 2026. Although they've said that they're doing so with the understanding that it's not going to come back in 2027. The organizer has confirmed with us that that is their plan. They would take the event elsewhere for 2027, but they have said that they do plan at some point to come back to the village. They would like to come back to the village anyways. So given the minimal impacts that staff have observed at the event, our recommendation is that the park use permit and the noise bylaw exemption are approved for 2026 as well. And just one final note, something that wasn't in the report. Just today, we received an inquiry from the applicant, just asking about some possible alternative dates, looking at May 2026. So just not knowing where that might land, what I would suggest is in the recommended motion that we just remove the June 4 to 8 part
Bluetooth
of it.
pairing.
And that we all pair Bluetooth devices. Yeah, and just leave the recommendation with 2026 rather than a specific date. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Hopefully somebody caught that. Okay, go ahead, questions?
No questions.
Questions, council?
No questions? This is-
I have questions. You have questions? No? Okay, I have questions. I heard in the community that this was a,
Connected.
I'm so glad now that we're connected. That it was a good event, and minimal impact, so that's great. And I'm gonna go back to the same thing I say every time we talk about events, which is that calendar's really full. This is an event that backs right up against BC Bike Race. And we've heard from our partner that, UROC, that it's a lot. That all these events over the summer are a lot, for the network. And I think they're also a lot for the community at times. And so I just want to, I understand that UROC doesn't want to allow it for another year, but should we come to a shuffle of the calendar, or one event leaves, or make space, that could come back as a consideration? Or is it just they don't want to have any more events because the volunteer burnout is that bad? And do you even know at this point?
Sorry, I'm not sure I understand the question. Is it what UROC was?
Bluetooth
Yeah, so
pairing.
UROC is saying there's too many events back to back and it's burning out all the volunteers, and then they can't get volunteers for their events. I think that's not just in the case of UROC, I think it's in the case of a lot of the nonprofits that are hosting events here, and there's so many events over the summer, people are tired, and they also want to have a vacation, because it's summer, instead of volunteering every weekend. But
Connected.
and because the calendar is so full, that it doesn't leave room potentially to move this event around much. And so I like the fact that we might be able to, it looks like in the calendar, or they're requesting different days. I appreciate that, because having BC Bike Race, which is also a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 day event, and Ride Life is then 6 days in the park, that's a lot back to back on the park, I think, on the turf, the field. So mixing that schedule up, I think, is helpful. And I just want to know if you know whether UROC would consider this event again in a future year if there were fewer events.
I don't think I can
Yeah.
give you the precise answer that you want. Yeah, I think that they would consider it in a future year, but I wasn't told that
Yeah.
directly. I'm just trying to judge from the tone of the conversation, I
Yeah.
suppose. Yeah, and I guess one other thing I'd add, to your point, I think given the inquiry today, if they do decide to move earlier in May, then maybe that does help things out a bit. It gives that break of a weekend in between those other two large events. We have that break in the park for half of July and all of August as well.
Yeah.
Just because of the fire risk.
Yeah.
So that gives it a bit of breathing room as well.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, every time we look at an event, or that calendar comes up, I think, how do we make space for new events? Because what if a fantastic event comes and we just have nowhere to put it because the network has an event every week? So I'm looking for potential solutions and also input from our partners to try and do that. And maybe that's part of the management plan, but that area is outside of our jurisdiction. Anyway, any thoughts you have on that would be helpful for me.
Yeah, I would just comment, so this is the anticipated schedule for next year, subject
Right.
to us receiving these applications and then issuing permits for it. So some of these are assumptions that these events are going to return. I think there is a natural change in events in that BC Bike Race, which I think has been a long-standing successful event, is not planning on coming back, or would come back in an entirely different type of event after 2026. So that may open up a new opportunity. This is information that we've heard, but we don't know. So Ride Lab is a new event. They found space, but it sounds like their goal is to move it around to different communities. And so I think there naturally is going to be, holes will open up, other people may jump. Is it the year that they really want to jump into the village? They may require some patience, but a lot of this is beyond our ability to really influence. And we're not the event organizer, we're really just permitting their facility usage.
Yeah, and then so I'm thinking about policies like, do we need a maximum number of people or a length of time or something to try and mitigate the impact of these large events happening sort of consecutively? But I'll leave that for another conversation when this comes back, because I think it's coming back at some point, again, probably. So I appreciate the feedback and the conversation every time we look at events. And with that, I'll stop talking and let you guys make motions. If you want, if you're so inclined.
Just, which event is it gonna overlap with, the Cumbie or the Stokefest in Durham?
If it were to change dates in May, you
Yes.
mean? I don't know. The email asked for several, the email is basically, how do any of these dates potentially work? And I think it was pretty much all the weekends in May. So it's just a question, I don't know if they're leaning towards one or the other. I also don't know, to Kevin's point, these were put in based on this year's events. I assume that the Cumbie is going to be around that weekend. I'm not sure about the Grand Bureau. But yeah, staff would work with the applicant to figure out if a date works, if a date doesn't work, and go from there.
Thank you. All right, I'll move that council direct staff to approve a park use permit and noise control bylaw exemption request for the Ride Lab event at Village Park in 2026.
Second.
All in favor? Great, thank you, Ryan. Next up, office planning, expansion, and facility renovation projects.
All right, good evening, council. So I think you guys are aware this is a project we've been working on for a bit more than a year, and it's taken a while in that we've investigated a number of options. And so none came out as glaringly obvious as the best. So I don't want to say this is the least worst, this is the best of the number of options pursued. And really there were two opportunities came up. So the first would be for expanding the office space to accommodate current staff needs would be in the village office. It is relative, in comparison to the rec center, it's a little bit more straightforward and it would get one more office. It wouldn't necessarily address some of the goals of the community services of the department and trying to maintain a good team and be working under the same roof. But that nonetheless is still proposed as something we pursue to meet other needs in the organization. The second is to expand office space in the rec center by another renovation to the kitchen. So it's kind of building off of the similar approach that was used 5 or 6 years ago to expand. And I just want to really stress the point that we're really attempting to maintain that commercial kitchen as a viable commercial venue, kitchen in support of cultural and special events that happen in the rec center. It is important, I think, cultural service to the community to have that. So what's proposed is it does shrink the floor space, but we would also move some of the janitorial storage and laundry out of there to get a little bit of that space back. And as a result, the knock-on effect of that would be losing one of the washrooms on that main floor in the foyer of the rec center. So it's shuffling a few things around, but it does ultimately meet those multiple objectives that we've set out. And then in addition to that, a third project is proposed for a financial plan amendment, and that's to enable the accessibility washroom project in the gymnasium to proceed to meet the accessible standard, which was more costly than originally projected. So those are the three projects, and I'll leave it to you if you have any questions. Ryan and I are here to answer.
Thank you. Questions, council?
No, the report covered my questions.
I did hear from someone who's running youth cooking classes and was concerned about the commercial kitchen, so I'm happy to hear that we are maintaining that commercial kitchen. I think it's one of very few in the valley. It's actually kind of critical food security kitchen at this point, even though it's, what am I gonna say about that? Not brand new, and also we need to make it smaller. So thank you for that consideration. And I don't have any other concerns. I think we need to find people places to work.
Well, I'll recommend, where do we get the long ones? That council approve capital project expenditures of up to $181,000 to be funded by the Growing Communities Reserve for renovations to a recreation centre and municipal office for the purpose of office space
Hold on one
expansion.
Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry, we do have to change the funding source. I see that it didn't get changed in the motion.
So not for growing communities?
Yeah, sorry, if you could do, to be funded up to $181,000 to be funded by $60,000 from the general facility reserve and $121,000 from the growing community. And the next motion is exactly the way it should be.
Okay,
Sorry about that.
that's okay.
60 and 121.
Yeah, from growing communities 121 and 60 from the facilities.
Actually, can I just ask that Growing Communities Reserve, so is that a funding source from higher levels of government?
Yeah. Yes, that's the one we received about just under 2.8 million back in 2023, and it has specific criteria. We're not 100% sure about the municipal. So I switched, in your second motion, I've switched your whole renovations in the washroom in the rec center, because that is eligible, to growing communities, and then the municipal to the facility.
And the General Facilities Reserve is our own reserve that we fund from tax revenues here.
That's correct.
Okay.
We do use a little bit of host and empty money to supplement that until we can get up to the level that we need to.
Thank you. Okay, good. So I'll recommend that council approve capital project expenditures of up to $181,000 to be funded by $60,000 from the General Facilities Reserve and $121,000 from the Growing Communities Reserve for renovations to the Recreation Centre and Municipal Office for the purpose of office space expansion. And that council directs staff to bring forward an amendment to the adopted 2025-2029 financial plan bylaw to reflect this expenditure. And that council approve an additional expenditure of up to $36,304 for the Recreation Centre Gymnasium Washroom Accessibility Project for a total project budget of $47,304 to be funded by the Growing Communities Reserve. And that council directs staff to bring forward an amendment to the adopted 2025 to 2029 financial plan bylaw to reflect this additional expenditure.
Thank you.
Second.
And all in favor? And that is carried unanimously too. Thank you. Council member monthly reports. Any questions on those? I have one for Councillor Tirian. About Fortis. So just tell me a little bit more. Is it actually happening right now? Are they planning? Are they, what stage are we at with
They are in the planning stage, I believe. Yep, it looks like the gas capture plant is going to go ahead out at the waste center. So, yeah, good news, bad news. We won't be flaring.
Yeah.
We won't be flaring gas for absolutely no benefit anymore. But yeah, but Fortis will be going into Fortis pipes for forest purposes. Yep. So, overall, a good thing, I think.
Yeah. Okay, if there's no other questions, then I will move on to notices, motions, and announcements. So, there is a draft regional tourism strategy open house that's already happened today. I hope you all went and contributed to that. I believe it's online as well, probably at Engage, on the Engage website, which you can find the link on our website too. And you can look at all the engagement for all the communities in the Comox Valley on that site, if you're so inclined. Our official community plan review online engagement starts September 9th at 6:30, and you can register at Engage Comox Valley website. And the official community plan review drop-in open house is September 10th at 3 p.m. at the Masonic Hall.
Can I just clarify that online engagement, is there actually an event at 6:30 for online participation, and then there's open and then there's consultation open by survey, or is it just the survey begins on the 9th?
Oh, I'm sorry. I was not listening.
I know. I'll repeat the question. The online engagement for the official community plan, September 9th at 6:30 p.m. Is that the point at which the survey is available, or is there actually an online event that people can take part in as a group?
September 9th, that's an online event, like a Zoom meeting.
Correct.
Zoom engagement, yes.
So then they would have to register before that on the Engage,
That's correct. There's a link to
Okay.
register.
Okay, great, that's great clarification, thank you. Okay, questions? There's no one here in the audience, so no questions here. Any online? Yes, closed.
I'll move that council close the meeting to the public pursuant to section 90 of the community charter to consider personal information about an identifiable individual who holds or is being considered for a position as an officer, employee, or agent of the municipality, or another position appointed by the municipality, and for labor relations or other employee relations.
Second.
All in favor? We are closed.
I was looking at the clock, I was thinking, yeah, soon we'll be done, I said. And then Andrea walked in and I went, of course it's closed.